I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 regular board meeting of July 11th, 2022. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our participants for this evening. Starting at my far right is Miss Marianne Southwick, Clerk of the Board, Dr. Sean Hawker, Superintendent, and to my immediate left, Mr. Casey Morrisroe, Vice Chair, Miss Leslie Bierke, Board Member, Miss Heather Tenbrink, Board Member, and I'm Rebecca Smith, Board Chair. This evening, Miss Allie Anderton, Board Member, will not be with us due to some family situations, and so we wish her well this evening. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of this meeting. Please sign in on the sheet provided at the entrance door. Because of the diversity of issues, members of the board will not respond to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to the proper staff member for follow-up. Comments may also be submitted to the board via email at trustees@CDA Schools or in writing through the clerk. Thank you. I think do I have an approval for the agenda or some modifications?
Do you want me to make a motion to?
Yeah,
Okay.
Can you do that?
So a couple items we wanted, one to pull off tonight's agenda, and that's consent agenda item F, which was a meal plan price increase. We need to hold on that for a month, if we could, please. And then Ms. Anderton asked that we hold off on policies 1310, 2500, 2530, and 5335 for a month so she can participate in the discussion on those. So I'd make a motion to pull those items.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we'll proceed with our agenda. And we need to approve the amended agenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, hearing none. We'll move forward. This evening, we have Venture High School with their graduation recap.
On June 8th, students, staff, family, and friends all gathered for Venture High School's last exhibit night of the year. Students once again got to showcase the subjects they learned by making joint projects. It was a fun night full of educational projects that kids got to share. To add on to this busy week, Venture seniors graduated on the 9th. Before the fun began, seniors got to enjoy a barbecue in celebration of their achievements, full of delicious food and congratulations. Last on the list for their high school year was graduation, honoring the seniors and their hard work. With many tears and smiles, seniors were sent off and given a long goodbye.
Terrific. Congratulations once again to Venture. Let me see, where did my stuff go? We're going to move into public comment. And is there a list for public comment? Yeah. Do we want to check and see if she'd like to sign up for public comment?
Ma'am, did you want to speak tonight?
Okay, thanks. All right, I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It's a meeting of the board to discuss and conduct district business. The board does allow some limited public comment on district-related items. Those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to one comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. At the designated time, you will be called to the podium. Please state your name and city of residence. If you have additional comments that you would like to be presented to the board, you may provide those comments in writing to the clerk of the board, who will ensure that the board members receive this additional commentary. If you have handouts, please give them to the clerk, who will give them to the board on your behalf. Please keep in mind that board members will not respond to public comment. If I determine that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directive, abusive, or repetitive, I may terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. Thanks. This evening, Mr. Green, Bill Green.
Is this on? No. Now it's on. Thank you very much. I want to talk a little bit about communication. And it's from my experience last week when I went to a city council meeting in Coeur d'Alene. And one of the council members mentioned that some of them had made efforts in the past to develop some communication bridges between the city government and schools. I'm not sure if that was school district or school board. And so today I met with that city council member and asked more questions about what that was all about. And the gist is that since schools are impacted by city development, annexations, and incoming large populations, and the city is unable to impose any impact fees since that's a state legislature item, they do have a new rule right now that they just passed last time that allows the city to require a development to set aside some land for school interests and some infrastructure for making that school happen on that land. And so I would just like to suggest that there maybe be some efforts to... Is that a sign? You don't like my words? I would just suggest that there be some efforts to bridge and make some communication between the trustees, the district, and the city council. Because when they have hearings for property annexations or developments, which mainly starts at the City Planning and Zoning Commission, I think they would love it if the schools would come and give some input about their concerns or ideas, how that new development or annexation might impact the schools, especially since there's so many new students that might be arriving on the scene. And I know that they would love to have a meeting between the city council and the board of trustees and have just, I'm sure there'd be lots of things to talk about. And these things usually begin, as I said, at the city planning and zoning. So another way you could approach that would be to send somebody, look at the agenda for when they come up, when they're meeting, and send somebody to listen and make comments if it's going to be in a development or an annexation or a property issue that might have some impact on the schools. I think they're really eager, at least what this person was telling me, they're very eager to set up and have some regular kind of connection so that when there are issues that would impact the schools, the people, you guys, who are involved in making all the good things happen for the schools are there to give your input and your ideas, and working together you might come up with some new thing that would be really beneficial. I guess that's kind of the main thing. Thank you guys for your service. As I said last time, that guy, give them a triple bonus for their salary. And thanks for your service. I know it's a lot of work. And but there's some really great schools in Coeur d'Alene, and this is just an effort to increase the chances of making them continue to be great and even greater by having connections and communications. Communication covers a multitude of potholes, as I'm sure you know. So thanks again for your service.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Green, for coming, and appreciate your words. Let's move into our consent agenda then this evening. These are all items for action tonight. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E and G, H, and I.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Let's go into consent agenda items for information. There's a finance report, cybersecurity, and disposal of technology. Those items are up for information. Is there any discussion or questions regarding any of those items for tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have consideration of assessment and student achievement. I'd like to introduce and welcome Dr. Mike Nelson.
Thank you very much, Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board. Good evening. Hope you all have enjoyed a very nice Independence Day holiday. And believe it or not, you would think that it would be somewhat quiet around these parts as we get there, but we're only 57 days to the start of the school year. Of course, this guy would be counting. I keep telling my kids every single day. And there are so many things that we are going on right now just to make sure that when our teachers come back, when our students come back, that everything feels ready. In fact, one of the things that we just finished up was we invited about 50 teachers from across the nation to come to Coeur d'Alene to learn how to teach AP better. So we had 8 different AP subjects represented, just some of those people who came as far away as Florida and New York to be able to spend time, a 4-day seminar learning about AP, which coincided with AP results. So that kind of brings us to our place, and I'm pleased to tell you, you don't get to hear from me much longer regarding all of these data. We are pleased to welcome Mrs. Heather Summers. Mrs. Summers is not a new face to our district. She's previously been at Atlas Elementary School for the last 5 years as principal. Previous to that, in the middle school at Woodland Middle School, and she is uniquely suited to be able to take on the new role of Director of Federal Program and Assessment. She started today, is her very first day, and we turned on the fire hose just enough to be able to get her a taste of all of the good things that she's going to be doing. But if you take a look at some of her responsibilities on the left-hand side, there are a lot of pieces that she will be responsible for. And we'll have an opportunity to be able to bring her up. Starting this next month, we're going to talk a little bit about how we organize professional learning and professional development around our district. Welcome, Heather. We're glad to be able to have you as part of our team. Then we start getting into some results for you. These summative assessments give us an opportunity to review. Unfortunately, at this time of the year, there's not a lot to do with the results other than admire them. But I can tell you that as our results are coming in, we are now looking at the instructional planning reports. We're looking at individual students and how they performed relative to their multiple attempts to taking an SAT, multiple courses that they've been taking AP. And then we're giving a lot of feedback starting in the fall to our teachers because we do believe in continuous improvement. So let's first take a look at our AP results for this year. The blue bar that you see on the screen represents the total number of students enrolled in semester 2 over the past almost 15 years that we've been offering AP courses in our district. You can see from a high of 2015 down to about the last 3 years, we've stayed pretty constant in terms of enrollments at both Coeur d'Alene and Lake City high schools. What has also fluctuated quite a bit over the years is the number of exams that we've been giving. That's the red number along the way. And if you look really closely at the 2022 bar, you'll notice that the red bar is actually higher than the blue bar. How can that be? We had more exams than kids taking this year, and we'll explain kind of that along the way. But overall, the numbers have been fairly flat for AP over the last several years. I think we found kind of a consistent number and delivery of exams. But we also take a look at how our students are enrolled in the exams, and really are the work that our exams and courses doing representative of our overall student body. Oddly enough, if you are a female, you are more likely to take an AP course in our district. 57% of all students enrolled in our AP courses are females. Oddly enough for that is that less than 50% of our students in our high school are females. So we have an overrepresented sample of females to males taking AP courses. We could certainly do a better job getting that number closer to 50-50. Or at least more representative to the actual enrollment in our high schools. We also have an over-enrollment of students who are identifying themselves as white. Almost 95% of our students who took an AP course this last year are white. That could be compared to about 86% of our overall student population in our high schools. Anywhere that you see one of those little bullseyes, that means that there is considered a statistical significance, meaning that there's at least a 5% difference between the overall population and what our results showed. Our little bullseye, there it is. So we did see that statistical significance in both of those areas this year. In addition, we also took a look about our students who are receiving free and reduced lunch, also equitably represented in our AP course enrollment. In our district, we're about 30% free and reduced lunch in our high schools, but only 7% of students who receive free and reduced lunch are taking an AP course. In addition, we have just about 7.5% of students receiving special education in our high schools, but not one student identifies receiving special education took any AP courses this year. So again, these are areas that we could certainly take a look at to ensure that our access to courses is available and that we encourage kids to be able to take as many of the most challenging courses that we offer. Once we got those kids in, what did they choose to do? 84% of students who were enrolled in a course took the exam. But you may remember a couple of slides back, well, how did we get more exams than student enrollment? Well, that's because we had 23 students who actually self-taught themselves an AP course or took their course via an online provider, such as the Idaho Digital Learning Academy. Well, those are still our students, so they take their exams with us. So even though they weren't in our AP course enrollment, they were still represented in along the way.
Is that primarily psychology?
Psychology is one of them. 8 of the 23 took psychology. That was the largest number along the way.
What's the next largest after that?
Darn, I didn't
Do you know?
that
I'm just
one.
curious, like,
I will get you a full distribution.
that's all right.
You got me. Okay. And how did those students do? Well, the exams are distributed on a 1 to 5 scale. 1, not being worth collegiate credit. 5, being exceptionally prepared for collegiate coursework. So ideally, we would like our students to receive a 3, which is valuable at many universities around, a 4, or a 5. This year, our distribution looks like this. On the left-hand side, we have just under 30% of all students represented. On the right-hand side, however, a majority of students, 70.01, received a 3 or higher, with almost 12.25% getting a 5, and another 19.6% getting a 4. This is an improvement over the previous year, which we will show you here. So this takes a look at those same distributions over 3 years. The golden bar is this school year. The red bar is the previous school year. So if you take a look specifically at cell number 5, right over here, you can see that our distribution and change is much greater this year. A greater percentage of our students received a 5 than in previous years. A large increase in students also who received a 4. And a little bit of an increase here in 3s. We also were able to decrease the number of 2s that we saw over the previous year, but we did see an 11 student increase in those who received a 1. We also are taking a look at our results now about how students did by content area. So we had the ability to be able to look at each of our content areas, for example, in the arts. Last year, we had no students taking any of our arts-based courses. Studio art, where they're actually producing art, and which is evaluated by their third party, or art history. No students last year. This year, Coeur d'Alene High School offered both of those courses and actually had the highest of all of our AP averages throughout. So congratulations to Hannah Kuntz at Coeur d'Alene High School. We can also see how students performed. That our mathematics and computer science was in second with an overall average out of 5 of 3.29, followed by English at 3.087. Our largest increase was actually in English, which was at 2.6 last year, and again over 3, exactly what we would like to see. We did see an increase in mathematics and computer science of 0.55, which would be statistically significant. The only challenge with that is that we had many, many more students take the exam this year than last year. So it's a little bit difficult to say along the way. Overall, our average was a 2.949. That is 0.21 higher than in the previous year. So our team got together and said, well, what can we interpret with all of this? So we looked at a little SWOT opportunity. The strengths that we saw is we certainly saw that numbers of 3 and higher go up over the previous year. That aligned with our expectations. We worked hard to try to make sure that students, when they took the exam, felt well prepared. But we also had more students get a 3. A 3 is fine, but we would certainly rather have them on the 4 and 5 areas along the way. In many cases, those students might be just a couple of content clicks away. So we need to find out, where those students specifically needed more help. And is it something that we could do curricularly? Is it something that we could do instructionally to support our teachers? Opportunities, we certainly talked about the representation of students in our AP courses. We feel like we have an opportunity to be able to do greater outreach to get these students in our highest quality courses available. And then, of course, the target at the very end, find more ways to be able to attract students to AP coursework, including these results in our teacher professional growth plans at the beginning of the year. That's a quick overview of our AP scores. They just came out this last week. We'll be more than glad to provide you any further detail, kind of a little deeper dive, should you request, as well as your request, Trustee Smith. Any questions, first of all, around our AP results before we move on?
Did you say a lot of the colleges are taking the 3 for the college credit?
Yes.
Okay.
A 3 is typically, especially at a public school, a 3 is usually recognized. However, a 4 and 5, especially at your highly selective universities, are what they're going to want.
Okay.
Every university sets their acceptance a little bit different. So we always encourage our students, especially in an AP course, to look at those colleges and universities that they're saving in Xello, find out what their acceptance rates are for those universities and what they will do with that particular score. Students in their College Board account can choose to transmit their scores to the college or university of their choice or not. So if I received a 4, I may say, it's not going to help me getting into said university, and I can choose to send it. Or if I was going and I knew that that was going to value some sort of course placement, then I could do so. Trustee Morsrow, did you have anything? All right. Well, we are pleased to say that we are also going to be continually visiting some of our students. In fact, we had 52 students, I need to adjust that number, it's 52, who got at least 1 perfect 5 across the district. So on Friday of this week, we got a small little team of building leaders and district leaders who are going to go plant some yard signs. In fact, I might be seeing somebody here in this room along the way on Friday as well. We're very, very excited. In fact, we have 9 students who received 2 perfect scores, 1 student who actually received 4 5s on their exams this year, 5 students with 3. We are certainly pleased, and we want to make sure that we publicly acknowledge where they're at, so those yard signs will be posted as long as the families would like to keep them. So let's move on to the ACT. Now, one of the things that you have heard me talk about is, especially with college entrance exams, ACT and SAT, we have had a paradigm shift of the number of colleges and universities that no longer require a college entrance exam as part of their enrollment practice or admissions practices. But we still see quite a few students to take the exams. So we'll take some of these results with a little bit of grain of salt. But for example, in the past several years, we had anywhere from 80 to 100 students opt to take the ACT over the SAT to meet our college entrance exam requirement and or the college and university requirement. This last year, that number was 20. So we're certainly seeing that impact some of our results. Here's how it went over the course of the year. First of all, overall scale score is calculated on a 1 to 36 range. You can see a majority of the students who opted to take the ACT to meet our graduation requirement and the college entrance requirements was 75% at Coeur d'Alene High School, and another quarter of those students taking it at Lake City High School. A lot of the reason that students will choose the ACT over the SAT is specifically around technical colleges. For example, we have a student who's attending Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Florida. And that particular student needs to take the ACT because it has a strong science component. And it's just one of those things that they look out to help differentiate their students along the way. Out of that, you can see our students actually placed around the 81st percentile of those 20 students who took it. So these are certainly our high achievers along the way, with our overall strengths in reading and mathematics, with science right there as well. English this year fell back a little bit, where science was our highest last year.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes, sir.
I think this past year, we did not administer the ACT, I believe, within our district. We were not a testing site. Is that something we're looking to add?
We are. So this last year, it was selective. So Lake City High School has always been our testing center. We offered it in June of this last year. But for whatever reason, Lake City High School pulled back on that. So many of our students went over to Spokane. I can reach back out to Lake City High School, but the last conversation that I had is that they were planning to become a testing site again. I will follow up with you, Trustee Morserow.
Dr. Nelson,
Yes.
does this represent every student, no matter their grade, that took?
Correct.
Okay.
A great majority of our students are juniors and seniors who are taking the ACT. So then our final college entrance exam is the SAT. This one's certainly more represented throughout our district. But even though we had 768 students take the SAT this last year, that is down from around 1,200 students in previous years. So again, because colleges and universities are not necessarily requiring it, students aren't taking it as often. We also saw that the average student took the SAT 1.2 times, where in the past that number was around 1.8, 1.9 times, with some students taking it 3 or 4 times to get that desired score along the way. Our distribution for this year was fairly equal between our large comprehensive high schools, 48-2 at Coeur d'Alene High School, 48-3, with the red sliver being the students at Venture High School. In this section, or in this exam, 2 sections, evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics, and we do have some subtests that bring in science, history, and social studies together. Overall, a high score would be a 1,600. Here's our distribution of scores of those 768 students for this year. You can see a great majority of our students were right in the middle of a bell-shaped curve. We had 1 student between 1,500 and 1,600 this year, but a majority of our students scored anywhere between 900 and 1,200.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
This year, did we give testing on a school day or was it on a weekend?
Nope, we had an SAT school day in April. That was for juniors.
Right?
And then we
And
had
they're
SAT
included
Saturday.
in that number?
Correct. So this represents all exams given for Coeur d'Alene Public School students, whether they were taken on a Saturday or whether they were taken during the school day.
So do we have a lot of students who chose not to then?
Take it
Take it at
during the
all,
school
yeah.
day? Or take it at all?
Take it at
Currently, there is still a graduation requirement in effect, so we still have a great number of our students who are still taking the SAT. If not, they can take the ACT or an AccuPlacer, which is typically taken by students receiving special education.
So is the reduction in the number of tests more that people are not retaking it?
Correct.
Rather than,
And they are not opting to take it on a weekend or Saturday. They're taking an alternate route along the way.
okay,
They're taking ACT, which is again a far fewer number, and we did have about 80 students take an AccuPlacer this year.
but most of our students are still on track to have that as the graduation requirement.
Correct. That is still a graduation requirement. It's considered an educational milestone. We work with our buildings very closely to make sure that when students graduate, they have taken a college entrance exam per our graduation requirements.
Do we have a standard score that students need to have when taking this SAT?
Sure, Trustee Yerke, the answer is in board policy, it currently says that they must participate. We have not yet established any sort of criterion mark that they must meet in order to graduate.
And that's been a state board of education, that's their rule too. Now, they have put a waiver out the last 3 years because of COVID, and we have not. So that
That's correct.
has, a couple times we've had some people say, oh, it's waived, and they haven't taken it thinking they didn't need to until the final weeks of school and they realized they didn't take it. But
It's been a lot of navigation. In fact, we had some students taking it literally on graduation day. But they made it, so there you go. The other options that we have available is we are always looking to see, is there a marked difference between how our students are scoring on a Saturday when it's a small closed environment, or is there a marked difference between school day? And what you see on here, the black bars represent our district average, the yellow bars represent our Saturday administration, and our pink bars represent our school day administration. And yes, there is a marked difference of whether students participate on a Saturday or on a school day. But again, you're talking about a very different population as well. Many of the students who are taking it on a Saturday have already taken the SAT and are attempting again or trying to get into a highly selective university. But it is important to note that students have a greater opportunity to be able to get their desired score on a weekend. The final piece that I have for you is kind of an overall. Now, this includes, again, all students. So the question is, how did our students overall perform? I'd like to point out a couple of pieces in these numbers along the way. Again, you'll notice that we definitely see a difference in students receiving free and reduced lunch compared to the district average. So district average in evidence-based reading and writing was 510. Students receiving free and reduced lunch was a 466 average. Students receiving special education at 389. There's a big difference in these populations. But it's also interesting to note that there is a large difference in students who are male and female. In evidence-based reading and writing, girls rule, an average of 520 to 500. But almost that exact same difference is in mathematics, but on the opposite way. Our boys, or male students, outperform our females. So ultimately, when you look at overall score, it's close enough, but there's about a 3.8% difference between genders in either subject or overall score. How did our students fare overall? It's a little bit tough to tell, but this gives us a 4-year view of overall score. In the 2019 school year, pre-COVID, our district average was 1019.5. We stayed right around there at the beginning of the COVID. Then we dropped a little bit last year, but we absolutely saw an impact this year. But again, remember the population is also 500 so fewer tests. So a lot of students who may have opted to take more exams may not be represented in here. Overall, our district national percentage dropped from around 52nd to right around the 48th. It is unofficial at this particular point because the College Board has not yet provided national norms for this administration year. So overall, our SAT data, it actually shows that our students are still perform well. 61% of our kids met the college and career readiness thresholds. That's nice to see. In evidence-based reading writing, 57% in mathematics, those scores still could be high. We again saw some deficiencies in our subgroups. We do have the PSAT scheduled again. So we had offered the PSAT as an optional assessment in the past couple of years. That is back on as a school day assessment in the coming years for grades 9, 10, and 11. So if we're really talking about making sure that students are well prepared for the SAT, the PSAT is absolutely the way to be able to do so. And finally, we want to make sure that we're providing those personalized supports for students in subpopulations, especially those around free and reduced lunch and special education. The final piece is once we get all of these data in and students are starting to take a look at where they would like to go, we do have Zello available for it. And here's our application summary for this year. 702 district common applications. Back in the day, you had to fill out an application for every college or university you wanted to attend to. Now, one click, fill out a common application and the majority of universities are represented there. So our district students sent 702 applications out. You can see that most of those went to the states of Idaho. The darker the blue shade, the more applications were received. So most of the Northwest is a little bit bluer than others. I regret to inform the great people in the states of Kentucky, New Mexico, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Delaware Doesn't look like our students are interested in attending those colleges this year. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a little bit better outreach. But 212 unique institutions were represented this year. And any alumni, Mr. Rasmussen, of our district can actually go in and request your official high school transcript to be sent to the college or university of your choice so that you can attend whatever college or university you want to do in the later years. You can do whatever you want. Though it's available at our district website, cdaschools.org. Finally, again, our summer reading programs are out and about. Our summer reading bus was at Ramsey a couple of days ago. Great kids coming out getting brand new reading materials to be able to stock their drawers with, and we had friendly volunteers out to do some personalized reading. So even though the summer months are here, we're very, very excited about how things are going. I'd be more than glad to stand for any questions that you have.
Dr. Nelson, is there going to be building data available on that as well?
Are you looking for ACT, SAT, and AP?
Sure.
Okay, absolutely. We just got our results this last week. We haven't even been able to look at them very deeply yet. Instructional planning reports just came out this morning. I'll get a summary for you probably within a week. Will that be acceptable?
Yeah, whatever works for you.
You got it.
Thank you.
Anything else, folks?
No.
I said whatever works for you or Heather.
That's true. I get to delegate. Thank you very much.
Hey, and congratulations on your new role. And
Thank you.
welcome, Heather, as well.
I'm excited
So,
and I'm humbled, but I also recognize we got a lot of good things to do. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great, thanks. Next up is, I think it's Shannon to talk about our 2012 bond.
Alrighty. I think I got the most entertaining topic of the night, so you are welcome. All right. So in the packet is there's a little summary I wrote about the early redemption and as well as the resolution if you do motion for it. Really what this does, this is for our 2012 bonds, and it's early redemption, so AKA paying off our last principal payment on our 2012 bonds a little early. So it'll be the September 15th, 2025 payment. And what this does is we have some excess fund balance in our bond fund. The reason for this is that Piper Sandler, our municipal advisors, throughout the term of our bond, throughout the many years, they are watching interest rates. They're making sure we're making the right calls when we choose to do a defeasance, which essentially helps save interest by paying off a bond with a higher interest payment with a bond with a lower interest rate. So what they've done is throughout the years, they've made sure of when we're making the right choices to hopefully save some interest. So they've set this up where we have some excess fund balance to pay off the $2.3 million early, essentially saving taxpayers $243,000 in interest cost. So when you make this resolution, that's what we'll do. We'll pay that off early in 2025 and save a little bit of interest. And Chelsea, our bond counsel from Holly Troxel, is here with us as well, and she can explain if you have any questions about the process. So,
Any questions?
No, but it's good news. I think
Yeah.
that we're able to do
Great.
it and save some money for our taxpayers. And
lot of
I
money.
think Eric talked to us about this a little bit when he
did prep.
gave his
Yeah.
presentation a couple of months ago.
Terrific. Hearing no questions, and is there a motion? There's a motion actually in our summary.
So my question is, that whole page, do we have to read that whole page?
No, just
Okay.
the motion, just the motion for consideration there right at the top on the summary page. And so each of our,
Oh, okay. I move that the board approve the resolution to call for the redemption of the outstanding portion of the 2012B bond maturing on September 15th, 2025.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you, Chelsea, for being here. Appreciate it. Good. All right. We'll approve that and save $243,000 tonight. So that's good stuff. Let's go on, and we have Mr. Voller up to talk about Coeur d'Alene High School and some exciting things going on there.
Good evening, Chair Smith, members of the board, and actually I'm going to pass my time over to Rick Rasmussen, who's going to come up and talk on behalf of the boosters who've been very active in coming up with some ideas that they have to support Coeur d'Alene High School with some donations that they would like to make, and Rick will present those to you, and then there is a resolution in your packet should you choose to accept those donations, that we'll accept that through a resolution. And then the second phase of that would be a contract that the district would have with the boosters, but that would come when they're ready for construction of those projects, should we accept it through resolution tonight. So I'm going to let Rick present, and then I can stand for any questions if there's any details you would have after that.
Chairman Smith, Superintendent Hawker, my name is Rick Rasmussen. As Dr. Nelson said, I'm a proud graduate in Coeur d'Alene School District, Coeur d'Alene High School, 1984, valedictorian many, many years ago. So we've had a long history in this community. My dad is a 35-plus year teacher. My mom's 35-plus in the district. My wife just retired after 33 years in the district. Me and my two brothers both went to Coeur d'Alene High School. One is a valedictorian. My daughter's a valedictorian. There's been a Rasmussen in Coeur d'Alene High School since it opened up in 1970. My brother's there now working. So the Booster Club started in 1972 by my dad and some gentlemen in here in the community. I've been on the board since 1989. I'm currently the president. Our Booster Club and Educational Foundation, we support all extracurricular activities, from band equipment and drama backdrops to activity. You know, we're trying to cover the bases for the kids. We've brought over $3 million to Coeur d'Alene High School. We have no paid positions. Everything we make and bring in goes back to the activities at Coeur d'Alene High School. So I'm here today to present two things we'd like to as a Viking Booster Club Educational Foundation. The first is what we're calling the Viking Field of Dreams. And yeah, perfect. So we are looking at putting AstroTurf on Coeur d'Alene High School. The total cost right now is $1.375 million. The field of that is $1,075,000. A $250,000 scoreboard, and then having gated entrances of $50,000. So that's your $1.3 million. We have pledged as of last Friday over $1 million. We have $650 in cash donations, $250,000 from Chief Allen and the Coeur d'Alene Tribe. We have $250,000 already pledged from ICCU for the scoreboard and sound system. We have $125,000 of in-kind donations from excavators, the 5 companies listed there, and 2 alumni that work at Welch Comer and Clearwater Summit to do the site surveying design, and then Costa Fabrication is put up and pledged the 50,000 gated entrances. Which one? The project coordinators are 2. So we have John Young, who owns Young Construction Group. He has a student at Coeur d'Alene High School, and then Tony Zanetti, who's a principal at Design Architects Group. The start date would be spring of 2023, right after track season, and the completion date would be by the end of the summer, so it was available for the first soccer game in the fall of 2023. The uses for the field: PE classes will be the biggest beneficiary. They'll be able to go out and use this for almost every activity that PE needs to do outside. The soccer, both girls and boys teams will be able to use the facility, football, and then there's a lot of rental options. We'll be able to rent it to club soccer. We'll be able to do junior tackle on it. The advantages is you go out and find a lot of studies that safety of having this, playing on a field. Having sprained my ankle my senior year in a pothole out of Coeur d'Alene High School was not a fun thing. So be able to have a field that you could have for safety and security. The maintenance cost, that'll be the saving for the district. Right now, the maintenance team has to water it, mow it, line it, chalk it, do all that, so that'll all be saved. The durability, these last 10 to 12 years, we'll be able to, when Coach Amos playoff year in, year out, the practice field gets so torn up, and to be able to go and have something that they could use for the whole season. Same thing with soccer, same thing with other sports that can go out and use this. We'll have higher usage, but like you were saying, we'll be able to have longer usages of it. We'll be able to have opportunities for state events. So when state soccer and other things want to come up here and we're always getting beaten out by Boise, we could come up here. And so we're looking for that. There's a picture of it. It'll have both lines for soccer. As you can see, the soccer fields. It'll have the football lines. Everybody that we're using will be licensed and bonded. And like Jeff said, we'll have a contract, so we'll make sure everything is done properly. And we feel we have a good track record of what we've done at Coeur d'Alene High School, what we've done for all the activities, and we just would like to partner with the board and with the school district on this. So do I go to the next one or one? That's ready to go there. Okay. So the next one, and again, I have Coach Sean Amos is here today if you have any questions of us, and then I have Coach Eric Carnes that's here today. And so the first part of it is there's the rules around the school district about naming facilities. So the track is named after my dad, and so there was, somebody had turned in a request. Here's a formal request to Superintendent Hawker to name this training facility we're proposing after Dave and Sue Schreiber. Dave was a longtime Booster Club member for 40 plus years. He was a Booster Club president after my dad. His wife Sue taught at Coeur d'Alene School District for 30 some years and at Coeur d'Alene High School. And we were trying to name the facility after those two great Coeur d'Alene individuals. So the total cost of this training facility for softball and baseball is $225,000. There would be a structure and a floor of $175,000. It'll have netting and AstroTurf that will be it'll have 3 hitting and pitching lanes in there that will be both for softball and for baseball. There'll be power that'll be ran out there. There's need to be tree removal and ground prep. It'll be right behind the current baseball field, and softball and baseball will be able to use it right over there. It's kind of by where the visitor bleachers are, right by the fairgrounds. There'll be some fencing around it so there'll be safety during the football games that people aren't over there playing around in there. We have pledged so far from John Schreiber, alumni from 1986, went to Stanford and University of Washington. He has pledged $100,000 already, and then another $62,500 in matching funds. And so far of those, we've already brought in total with his pledges, the 126. We brought in another 11,000 already, and we haven't really gone out and asked anyone yet. We have the power that's been donated from Premier Electric, and then with the tree removal and the ground prep from Big Early Excavation. So we have 15,000 of matching, so that John will match all those. So we really are not that far from being able to. We need about another, so that'll be 20. So we've got another 40,000 in donations, and we will have this thing already completed. The best thing about both these projects, it will not cost the school district any money. There will not be, on the football field, they'll be saving money on the maintenance. They will not be doing the field maintenance on that. And it'll be completely, again, go to the next page. The project coordinator for this, again, is Tony Zanetti with Design Group. Architects will make sure all the people working on it are licensed and bonded. The dimension of it is 85 by 45. If approved by here, we'd like to start in fall of 2022. Complete it by softball season 2023, the softball, baseball, also rental options to club softball, Legion baseball, youth baseball. We could rent it out to them. Again, it'll be higher usage. Right now, we're not able to do any of that. You're outside there, just a cage that's ready to fall down. It'll be a safer facility. You'll have good footing, and then just proved performance by the student athletes here. This is what it would look like. So there'd be a fence around it, but it would this is the basic core structure of it. Would be open air, but it'll be able to cover. And so they basically could almost use it year round and be able to pitch and hit in there. So those are the two proposals that we'd like to do. And again, it will be no cost to the school district. Everybody there will be licensed and insured, and it'll be just, that much more to make us proud of Coeur d'Alene High School.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. What a tremendous, that's a lot of community involved in that project. I have one question. Does anyone want to start? Go ahead.
Sure. Can you just explain to me, you mentioned the contract. Explain to me how's that structured?
We're still drafting that contract, but it basically would be because they're going to provide all of the contract services. It's a contract that would just make sure that the boosters have insurances in places, indemnities in places, the things that would protect the district. And so that would be the second piece of that with that contract between
So
the boosters and the district.
The Booster Club is actually building it. The district is not.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The boosters are paying for it, contracting it. The district will be involved in
Overseeing
that.
the
district will be
construction and-
involved in that process, just so we know what's going on, similar to what we do when we do construction projects that we run. But they would be handling all of that.
Okay, so then were there to be any it costs more than you think it would, the district's not on the hook for that?
That would be on the boosters.
Be on the boosters.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask one question along the lines, and this is maybe just that nonprofit background, because you mentioned the words pledges a couple times. Are most of those pledges already in hand, or is there a plan if the pledges were not, if things were to change in those pledge holders situations and pledges didn't come
Before
in?
we move forward, we have not gone to the press with this. We wanted approval from the board and from the superintendent before we move forward. And so we've not gone to we have already 40,000 in hand, and John will write me a check tonight if needed, Schreiber, he just sold a company for many, many millions, so I think he's good for it. That we will have this in hand before we move forward.
Great.
So we will make sure we already have 40,000, I think, already, and people, just because they pledged it and they want to get it in there. So I'm not worried about the people that we have pledged in there. We're waiting to go out to the public and trying to do a challenge with some of my classmates and other years of, state champions, trying to do some challenges to try to go out there. And soccer community stepping up, and there's a lot of folks coming. So I think we'll get there and more, and we could potentially do more, but Coach Amos is driving it every day. I don't feel there's a worry about the money side of it. We won't move forward unless we know we have it in place.
Thank you.
So I've been kind of walking alongside these guys a little bit on this, just because they were wondering what's the process on this, and because I work with Rick and Eric and Sean. And so that's why we thought it was a good idea to bring it to the board, so we knew about it and there was approval. So they didn't go and raise the money and then find out we don't support it, or Sean, Superintendent Hawker, doesn't support it. Because that's, if they raise the money and then all of a sudden they got to do refunds because there's not support, that's a big issue. Jeff, I believe in one meeting when we talked, part of that contract is they have to have the funds raised before they can break ground, right?
Yes.
Or at least a substantial portion of the funds.
Yes, correct.
The turf company will allow us to do anything till they
Okay.
Same thing with the builder of this structure. It's Steel Structures of America, and so same thing. They're going to want that paid for prior to us going forward with it. So.
Great.
I do appreciate Rick's, stepping up on this one. I think it's a tremendous asset for our community. I have kids that play competitive sports and they travel all over the place. And the fields out at Real Life Ministry have been a game changer for our community, just to have those fields available, and they are busy nonstop. All winter long, my kids are out there, playing soccer. So there's a huge demand for this, and a huge desire. And, I hope I'd like that's community supported, and I hope the community can support if Lake City wants to venture down the same road, that we can help them with that as well.
Definitely, yeah. A lot of the people that are supporting will be willing to support at Lake City also. So I think it's out there, but I just think we need to get one in our town and then move on. It just, there's such, and I'm sure that, Lake City Soccer, who won the state championship last year, and towards the end of the year, if they would have wanted a better footing, would be nice to come over and would be, even with the Viking Sea in the middle, would want to play on better surface than playing what they had to at the end of their season, on their way to a state championship. So I think it's good for our community in total.
Yeah. Terrific. Is there a motion hearing support?
I'll make a
And
motion.
do you want to add the resolution number into your recommendation as well? There, it's this number.
The 22230.
Yeah.
Okay, I would make a motion to accept the donation from the Booster Club via Resolution 2223-03. 003. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you, and thanks to the community too. I feel like that's a huge. Can we clap? Like that's a huge gift. So, thank you for your work on that, and thanks for believing in our student athletes. And it's exciting for our schools. Thanks. All right, we're gonna move on then to Mr. Voller. You're still up, and our negotiated agreement.
Thank you, boosters. Yes, I put a summary in your packet that outlines what we have agreed upon in the last IBB session. We met 5 or 6 times and took us a while to get there, but through constant work, and we appreciate the willingness of the CAA to stick with us as we were working through that. So we put, I think there's 10 items that you'll be approving that are in your board packet, and I can answer any specific questions, but we gave you a pretty detailed summary on that in your board packet, and Mr. Morris Rowe or Ms. Bierke could probably answer a couple things as well as they participate in that process as well.
Any questions or comments?
If I could add, I would say that the CEA voted to their approval as well. We got that word this morning. And I think you were included on that email.
I just wanted to point out, especially as we'll move to administration salary in a bit here, that in the course of the negotiation, CEA was offered a couple different options, and one of them was the same raise will be given to administration if we prove it, but they chose a different route with the master's pass-through. So I just wanted to point out that we offered the same, they wanted a slightly different distribution of money.
Yeah, the dollar amount between the raise that all teachers will be getting and the master's pass-through is about equal to that 4% that we've been talking about with that. And that is true. They had 2 options for that, and they made that pretty clear that the master's pass-through was something that was very important to their membership, and that was the option that they elected.
Right. So while it may appear that administration is getting a higher raise, they are not actually.
Any other comments or questions? We've all been tracking, I think, for the last few meetings on this process, and a lot of time and energy from both the district and CEA. And so thank you, Erin, for all your work as well on getting us to this point.
Just real quick, I'd like to thank Leslie, who was in there last week when I was out of town and got the deal closed. So I told her she volunteered herself for next year because she closed it when I couldn't. And I appreciate it because 7 years is enough. But thank you. So, and glad we were able to go this route and reach an agreement.
There's a recommendation on the summary page right at the bottom. So I can kind of say it if someone else would like to make the recommendation, but or make the motion. It's the recommendation of the board negotiating team to fully ratify the agreements proposed and settle on by the CEA and board IBB negotiating teams. Do I have a motion?
So then I motion to fully ratify the agreements proposed and settled on by the CEA and board IBB negotiating teams.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Great, we have settled. Thank you all. Thanks, Jeff, and that needs a clap as well. Thank you to all of our staff and teachers. Next up, then, we have the administrative salary schedule, and Mr. Davis, you're going to present on that, I believe.
Chair Smith, he may be caught off guard a little bit.
Oh, sorry, your name, I'm just,
see the
your
look on his
name's
face.
on it. I know, I kind of saw that, and I'm
Yes,
like,
we did.
well, maybe Dr. Hawker
His name on it, but I'm happy to as well. And I think the biggest
We're
call
good.
I welcome back from vacation.
It's preach,
and
prayer, die at a
everything
moment's
else.
notice, right? You know, we'll figure it
the
out.
biggest call out on
Yeah.
this specific item is what Trustee Tenbrink just mentioned is the fact that the administrative recommendation, or I would say specifically my recommendation, would be to offer the administration, your building principals and those folks the same that you offered your teachers. However, the choice that the teachers chose was a little different with a master's pass-through, and that's not really applicable to your admin team. So with that, we have that recommendation there to just simply to do what the initial offer was for the teachers. Anything else, Eric, you want to
No,
add
that
to
was what I was going to say.
Great, thanks. Any questions or discussion on that, concerns? There is a motion then at the bottom of that page as well. I can read the motion.
Do you want me to read the sample?
Yeah, just if that's the motion you want to make, so, yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to award administration a 4% raise with an additional 1% raise upon passage of the plant facilities levy.
Is there
I'll
a
second.
Second. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, so congratulations to admin. That passes. And then next up, we have the administrative salary schedule then as well.
That's why we're bringing that up. I think it's worth pointing out, we did take care of classified raises a few weeks ago, I think at our last board meeting. And that was a 7% raise for our classified folks.
This is agenda item 9, so there is any comments or anything on that at this point?
It really is up to the trustees if they have any questions or anything. Mr. Davis hustled clear back here from San Diego to make sure he was here tonight in the event there were any questions in regards to this matter. So I don't want to cut the conversation shorter than it may need to be. But if there's no questions, then obviously we can move on. If there is questions, we're here to answer those questions.
I'll just speak to this one briefly. I think a couple of months ago in kind of my, whatever we do, twice a month meetings with Dr. Hawker, I brought up this idea, or somehow we started talking about this, and it was something they were already working on. I think in my 7 years on the board, it's become an issue when we've had cabinet positions. In the past, there wasn't a salary schedule on them, so there could be great degrees of variance in pay there, and that oftentimes created tension with our CA folks or other administrators and those sorts of things. And I think as I was getting ready for negotiations this year, I was looking at salary schedules, and a lot of the other larger districts in our state have district office salary schedules. And like I said, Dr. Hawker and Eric were working on that already, and I think it's important. I think it's good work, and it shows that scale where those positions pay. And I think something else that they've looked at, and we've talked about this in negotiations, Leslie and I, and I think we talked about this in a board meeting about looking at our pay scale as a whole for our teachers. But we've had a revolving door at the district office in certain positions. And some of that is just because there's been pay gaps when you look at a district office administrator that's working 40 days or 50 days more than a building administrator, but the pay difference wasn't there to compensate for those 40 or 50 days. So it starts to address some of that. So I appreciate the work, and would make a motion to approve the district office administration's salary. Yeah.
If you came from San Diego, I got to ask a question. Tell us about how you arrived at the salary ranges on the schedule.
A good question. We took a look at the 3 districts that are slightly larger than us and the 3 districts that are slightly smaller than us. We tried to feel where we fit in the whole scheme of things. And when we took a look at the 7 districts, we were number 7. And so even the 3 smaller districts than us, their compensation was significantly different. Thank you. There you go. I thought I had a big mouth anyway. But the 3 smaller districts than us were still compensating more than we were. And just to give you guys a feel, our employee to student ratio fits right in the middle too. So it's not like we have too many people. We have just the right amount of people doing just the right amount of student work. We fit in there as number 3 in terms of our student to employee ratio. But we are the number 7 in those 7 districts' pay scales. Didn't want to, and it started with Nampa, number 3, Bonneville, Pocatello, then us, Idaho Falls, Valley View, and Twin Falls. Those were the 7 that we compared. Even if we do this salary structure, this salary schedule, we will still be number 4 out of the 7. So just to give you an idea, we're not going out there trying to beat the racehorses and be number 1. We just, it's trying to look at it fairly and give our people a path to continue to move from building admin into district office.
And this was the actual schedule, and we'll make sure that that's publicized, right? As well.
This is the
schedule's
comparison.
in the packet, it just, yeah. I don't,
This was not. This was a last second.
addendum.
Yes, this was a last second drop off as Eric made it back from California.
That's what we
So-
did today.
Yes. So that wasn't in the board packet,
Formalized
but
it.
the actual schedule, again, very simple schedule with just those initial hiring ranges that are in there. But that's a derivative of this exact work that Eric was able to put together.
Can we put this in like our board notes? Or,
Of course.
Or maybe we don't have those in the summer, huh?
No, we do.
Oh, okay. All right, anyway, yeah, it'd be nice, because then it would be in the public records too.
Yeah, we can
Add
add it. Yep, we can.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's the salary comparison that Mr. Davis was just talking about between the 7 school districts.
Yeah, I can add it.
Great.
Just some good description material that we can just add to that topic right there in board books.
All right. Any other questions? Trustee Morrisroe, do you have that motion?
Yes, I do. So I'll make a motion to approve the district office administration salary placement schedule as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. It approves.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eric, for your work. Mr. Voller, I think you are back up with the ISBA resolution and want to give us some information and explanation to this.
Yeah, this resolution came about the work that I've been doing with the Regional Growth Housing Partnership, and we have a school subcommittee. And part of it is talking about the impact of growth on this area. And, you know, we know that the housing market has gone crazy. We know that teachers aren't affording houses very well. But this specific resolution is talking about how can schools fund construction projects. And, you know, one of the ideas that we would greatly support is the idea of impact fees. And that was brought to the ISBA a couple of years ago through a resolution, and unfortunately that hasn't gone very far in legislation. You know, I think it keeps getting brought up, but it's falling on deaf ears. This is one that we would propose this board support, and Post Falls is considering it today. Lakeland has already voted to support this as well, so it would be the 3 school districts in this region being willing to take this to the ISBA conference for consideration as a levying topic for the next legislative session. The gist of it is to take the school plant facility levy, which you're well aware of because we are going to run one in August, has a term limit of 10 years. This would allow it to be a term limit of 20 years. The grand scheme of the idea behind this is that allowing 20 years for a plant facility levy will allow the voters to have a lower amount each year. So, for example, if we were going to do a middle school, build a middle school, and let's just say it's $35 million to build a middle school, you could essentially use a school plant facility levy rather than a bond to consider building a middle school. And so at 35 million, you could ask for 3.5 million for 20 years for a longer period, a lower amount for each year from the taxpayers, at a lower voter threshold. So either a 55% or a 60 rather than the 66 2/3 that a bond would require. So it's really just giving a tool in the toolbox for consideration. It's not something that probably every district would do. We just feel like it would expand that current tool of a plant facility levy and give greater consideration for school districts to consider should that be changed in the legislation. So that's the resolution that is due to the ISBA by July 31st, and that's before you for consideration tonight.
So I'll talk just a little bit about the resolution process since you guys are new and haven't been through the November ISBA conference yet. But every year, school districts are allowed to present resolutions that then the entire ISBA delegation votes on. And if it passes then at the November conference, then it becomes a legislative priority for basically the lobbying arm of the school boards association. And usually there's maybe 15-ish, 15 to 20, I would say, resolutions that the trustees vote on each year. Some of them are kind of repetitive, like school impact fees is one that's been voted on several times, and I think actually failed initially, but it passed the last few times. And it's getting more traction, I think, this past year than it has previously. Really, ISBA ends up picking 3 or 4 of whatever is approved because they can't lobby for 20 items. And there's carryover from years before and all those sorts of things. So really, this would be my understanding. Is sometimes it's just one district that will present something. Sometimes it's multiple. So this would be us, Lakeland, and Post Falls together. It looks like bringing this as an item to the November convention for the School Board Association. And then we would vote on it there as well. The votes are divvied up by school size, so we get more votes than Post Falls, or we get more votes than Kellogg. It's all based on student population, how many votes you get.
So you talk about building a middle school with a plant facilities levy, for example. But you don't want to wait 20 years to build a middle school, right?
Yeah, you can, we talked with the bond council on this just to make sure, but you could actually then borrow the money because that money would be guaranteed. So you're essentially borrowing, like almost like a home loan kind of type thing. So, a bond is giving you that money to pay it up front. This will be paying it over time. So there still would be, borrowing of money that you'd be paying off over time, but this money would be guaranteed because that bond has passed or that levy has passed. And so each year, you would get the amount of money you need to fund what you need to pay for that process.
Okay, so it could still be used to build a building in a shorter term.
Could be.
But spread the cost over.
It could be.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's several ways. West Ada, for example, I think they don't run a M&O levy, but they run a big SPFL, like 60 million, I think, a year, I believe. And they do some of their M&O stuff out of that, but they do some construction stuff out of that as well. So that's how they build their schools. I don't think they run bonds anymore to build their schools. But they're a big district, but they're pulling 60 million a year.
I would add, if I could, I think it's just a good, if this were to ever go through, I think it's a good opportunity for a community, a school district to be responsible to the community. With depending upon your indebtedness rate, that would determine your amount of percentage that it needs to pass by. So it's not a way to really circumvent any of that. In fact, it would encourage districts to have that lower debt ratio so that they could potentially pass it at the 55% threshold rather than the 66 2/3 that a bond requires anyway. So I think there's some good financial incentives to school districts and the communities as well if this were to ever to happen. Right now, 10 years, you'd be very limited on the amount of money that you could borrow and build a school on. Maybe a portion of an elementary school or something you could do, but definitely the 20 years would open that door a little bit more if that were ever to come about. And that's going to take some legislative work way outside of this board as well, but this is a starting point.
When I was a kid in this district, they couldn't pass a bond. They went years and years and years and failed bonds repeatedly. So eventually, the way they built a number of schools, Hayden Meadows and Fernan and some of those, is they didn't do bonds. They did plant facility levies, and they did little short-term, 2-year type plant facility. That was a bigger dollar amount. I think we built those schools for $4 or $5 million or less, back then. But that's how they did those. And a lot of the remodels were done that way until 2012, I believe, or 2010 was kind of the first time we started back with bonds in our district. And that was because it's a lower threshold for approval. So they couldn't get to 66 2/3, but they were getting 60%. So they were able to get it passed that way. And maybe even the high schools, Lake City High School might have been, no, it was a bond for Lake City High School.
I'd have to look back on the history of that. I don't recall on that one.
Great. Appreciate your work on this subcommittee. I think just that that housing and growth issue is just such an important one right now, as we all know. And so thanks for your work on this. I'm excited to see what Post Falls decides to do as well to come at this maybe collectively. So any other questions, or there is a motion there if the board so chooses to make that motion?
I'd be willing to make the motion. I think, then we'd gauge if other school boards around the state feel like this would be a useful tool for them or not. But I think it could be a useful tool for us. So I will move to approve the support of the 2022 ISBA resolution titled Modification to Definition to Increase Term of School Plant Facility Levy from 10 to 20 years, as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thanks, Jeff. Take it to the next level. So appreciate that. We have policies, and we've already pulled 4 of those policies for tonight to include Trustee Anderton at a later date. We're going to go ahead and look at policy then 3010, open enrollment. And we had a couple comments on this policy. I'm trying to. Dr. Hawker, do you have any comments on this? This involves.
You bet. This policy really just has one minor change to the policy, and that is to strictly identify your newly created Coeur d'Alene Virtual Academy as not being included in regards to the recruitment of open enrollment students. It very well could be possible that we may have some interest outside the district for students to attend that. And this policy, the way it was originally written, I believe was aimed more at, perhaps our coaches have left now, but perhaps, coaches may be recruiting kids from other schools or whatever and trying to bring them into the schools. And so those rules are already in place. We're good with those. The High School Activity Association has guidelines and all of that. We just want to make sure that we're not violating any board policy if we do happen to talk to a student that would be residing in another district, maybe homeschooling their student, but would have interest in enrolling their student in your Coeur d'Alene Virtual Academy. So we've added that one sentence there to that policy that would simply say that does not apply to the Coeur d'Alene Virtual online enrollment process. Other than that, the policy remains as written.
And just for my own clarification, once a student was enrolled in the online academy, they wouldn't be able to just roll over then to another school because they're
that is
technically
correct
in the district. I just want to.
That's correct. They're being accepted as an online student only, and that's it.
Any additional questions or comments on that policy then?
I can move to approve the policy with the modifications. Policy 3010.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, 3010 then is approved. Thank you.
Thank you for taking that up this month so we can get started this summer.
Terrific. Excited to see what happens with our CDBA. Superintendent's report. We have one policy on there it's policy 2385, our English Learners Program. That policy will be out then for the next month, unless you have any comments or anything on that. It's pretty straightforward, so that'll go out. We then have upcoming board items. We've got a board training on August 1st. I think that will include our new training for our new online board docs. Got it. Board docs. And then a regular board meeting on August 1st. We've got a board workshop on August 22nd. August 29th then, we've got the district kickoff breakfast. Welcome back to school, everyone, already. And September 12th, we've got a regular board meeting. And October 3rd, we've got a regular board meeting as well. We will take a short recess to allow the room to clear. We are going to move into executive session under Idaho Code 74-2061, subsection J, to consider labor contract matters authorized under section 74-2061 A and B in Idaho Code. And so we'll take a short recess to clear the room. Thank you so much for joining us this evening after executive
roll call?
session. I'll do that in a second once we've cleared the room. And then we'll resume following executive session.